All right, hello and welcome. Day One Pass Podcast, episode 497. I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Look who we have here. Adriano.
Hi.
I don't even know the last episode you were on, but...
I was on back in February. I remember because I specifically said it was the first one of the year, and I said I'm going to do my best to try to do at least one episode a month.
Oh, that didn't work out, did it?
That's not happened.
But welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Always talking about your PC issues. We were probably talking about it back in February.
Yeah. I still listen to the podcast, so I every once in a while, Matt on every episode will name drop me. But we were talking to Adriano recently about this, and I'd be like, "Yeah, we were."
I always name drop Stargate as well, but you just did right now.
Yeah, that world class IP.
The world class IP.
What is the status of Stargate, Matt?
Last we heard, some scripts and some projects got rejected by Amazon, but it's like, well, no. So it's more about like they said, okay, we want to revive. I think it was 007 and Stargate. So it's 007's in the works, and then they're like, we're open for like pitches, and so some pitches were given, and they're like, no. So like I'm sure this is standard, right? Like they're going to take in a bunch of like scripts and stuff, because there's also like a big question at the moment as to like, do you reboot everything? Do you keep everything that happened? Do you soft reboot and like go back to the original movie? Because it was supposed to be a series of movies, and then MGM like quote unquote hijacked it and then made TV series. So like, what do you do? So it's a big question. So it's like, how do you like make it? How do you make it good? And also SGU fucking sucks. So like they probably want to avoid that as well. So how do you make Stargate? As a
Stargate fan, what would you prefer? Do you want them to make a new series in the same universe, or do you want to reboot? What do you want for the future of Stargate?
So here's the thing: is like I'm very like selective. I would say in this particular case is like I would, if they do it well. And it's a big ask, but if they do it well, in my opinion, then I would like it to continue. However, I'm not opposed to it being rebooted, because the universe that I like is then just like, that's it. Like
it's done. Yeah.
I've seen the stories. I can rewatch them anytime. I'll still rip on SGU, but I still have Atlantis, the movie, and SG1. So like, that's what I'll watch.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Well, no. So what I was going to say, though, is like, I'm not saying that if it reboots in another universe, like if they reboot the whole universe, that it should be bad, though. That's not what I'm trying to say. I just think it's the safer route, at least for me. Like, I only want them to continue the universe if it's good. I don't want the universe to be like, well, the Stargate universe is fantastic until, you know.
But you never know what's going to be good until you make it.
Right. So like, if I were in charge, the safer bet, the way with my mindset, is to reboot everything and leave the existing alone. Okay. The problem, though, is like, I know that's going to piss a lot of people off, but I'm totally fine with it being like we got a lot of TV. Like we got 10 seasons SG1. We got the feature film at Stargate. We have 2 movies, Continuum and Arc of Truth. We also got 5 seasons of Stargate Atlantis, and I think we got like a season and a half or 2 seasons of SGU, which aren't worth watching. So like, I really do not enjoy SGU, but like we got TV, like we have TV to watch. There's enough there where I'm just like, okay, like if you want to go and mess it up now, like go do it somewhere else in someone else's yard, right? But like I would love to see some old characters come back and stuff. So I am definitely on the fence, but I think I'll be happy either way.
As a Star Trek fan, that's exactly what I want. I want them to stop, and they kept on going.
Stop beating the dead horse.
Yeah, we're going to bring back Star Trek. And like when JJ did his movies, like, okay, you did it, but you did a weird thing where you use like the end of the last universe to reboot this one. So like it is connected in this weird way, but it like the other one is still separate. Like it's literally called like Roddenberry like Prime Universe or Roddenberry verse, and then the JJ verse. And then they went and did Discovery.
The Kelvin universe.
Kelvin, yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, Kelvin universe. And then they went and did Discovery. And the Strange New World spinoff. And the first 2 seasons of Picard. But I do like the animated ones. What's it called? Prodigy and Lower Decks. Those are very good. So
But you know what they could have done though, because all the TV shows right now for Star Trek look very much J.J. Abrams, right? And it's like, why didn't you just make them in the J.J. Abrams universe?
it was
Why not
probably
leave the old universe alone?
It was probably a licensing thing. It was probably like an agreement where.
But I don't know, because like they basically recast the entire Enterprise crew with Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
So why not just start fresh then? You know.
Yeah, they just it's they made a lot of dumb because when they redesigned the Klingons in the Discovery pilot,
Oh man,
people have lost their minds.
It was bad though.
It was bad, but I think
And the
people
Klingons have such an iconic look
Yeah.
in TNG. It's like, why would you mess with that?
But the thing is, Klingons also looked like us in the 1960s. In fact, it was actually kind of racist. They were blackface, but and then they went and they undid it. So now in Strange New World, Klingons look like the film version of Klingons that we know from like the 70s and the 80s. But then that also goes against the canon because they thought Klingons looked just like blackface until they got to the movies.
But isn't there an in-universe explanation? I've heard one where it's like the Klingons that Kirk encounters in the original series are like genetically modified Klingons that they were trying to like replicate kind of the Khan superhuman idea, but with Klingons.
Yes, exactly. So they what they did was when the original show went to the movies and they redesigned the Klingons, nobody thought anything of it. People just like went to go see movies. They just thought it's like, oh, it's a visual retcon. Like they're not going to acknowledge that they look different.
People
they just
probably didn't care as much back then either.
Exactly. They did it. And then it wasn't until the crossover episode of Deep Space Nine in the original series where they time travel back, in which Worf is with them, and they discover it's like, wait, those are Klingons? Like they don't look like you. And then Worf Worf has great throwaway lines because he had one in Picard season 3 as well. But he goes, "We don't talk about it with outsiders." Like he's just like, we're not talking about this. And then it's like, okay, so there's a story there. And then I honestly appreciate Enterprise more and more every day now. And it wasn't until we get to Enterprise in which they actually connected and they retconned it again. But the thing is though, which is fine. So they really fixed the blackface Klingons to what we know and love. But the thing is though, in Strange New Worlds, they with Pike and Spock, they have moved. We have the Klingons we know and love. But they weren't supposed to get those Klingons yet. So
because this is even pre-Kirk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Spock is interacting with those Klingons. It's like, no, he's not supposed to know about the ridges. Those are not supposed to be known yet. So it's fun. So speaking of Star Trek and Stargate, I actually like a couple of weeks ago, I was going to tell you guys I had just like an art, like I just wanted to do something creative and something different. So I actually went back and I tried to edit that pilot podcast that we did.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is, I actually can't find the audio files.
Oh.
I don't know. I have like the master edit file, but then all the linked files are gone. So I don't know if it's some weird OneDrive thing, like we were just talking about how but I'm actually very disappointed because that pilot episode files are gone and I don't know where I put them.
That's unusual for you. You usually squirrel things away.
I did, and I'm like, okay, I'll just load this up, and I literally went to the directory where they would be, and like there was nothing there. I'm like, how is this?
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate.
All right, let's get on to some gaming stuff. Matt, you got a video game fun fact for us?
I do indeed, and it's a little unfortunate. It's a little sad. I was talking to you guys before the show that some of this stuff is pretty. I mean, it's nostalgic, which I know you don't like in particular, Ryan. I know that a lot of people do enjoy nostalgia. However,
it depends.
Some of this stuff is, well, a lot of this stuff is because it's video game fun facts. We're digging in the past a lot of the time, and a lot of the stuff is dead, and it's a bit tragic. And this is a bit of a personal tragedy for me, or at least something I didn't enjoy. And this is the rise and the fall, more like leaning toward the fall, of Pandemic Studios. So you guys remember Pandemic, right? Back on the PS2, Xbox era, they're responsible for things like Star Wars Battlefront.
I legit thought you were talking about COVID-19.
No. Star Wars Battlefront 2004,
Okay.
Mercenaries Playground of Destruction, Destroy All Humans and The Saboteur. So Destroy All Humans came out in 2005. 2005 for Mercenaries as well. In 2009 for The Saboteur. So things were going pretty good in the PS2 era. And then, of course, the 2009 release of The Saboteur is Xbox 360. And this is where the problems hit. So Pandemic Studios was founded in 1998. And it quickly made a name for itself with hit games, particularly action, adventure, and tactical shooter games, many of which I've just mentioned already. And they were known for combining intense action with strategic depth. And also, I mean, just a personal side note, there was some pretty creative stuff. Like Mercenaries was, I think, the first game I ever played where you could just destroy everything. And then Destroy All Humans was also a game where you could destroy a heck of a lot of things, quite a lot of destruction, with your ship especially. And The Saboteur wasn't just, you know, any World War II shooter. It was like a really cool, I don't know if you guys have ever played it, but it's like a noir Paris, where you go around Paris and it's in black and white wherever the Nazis have a foothold, and you are a saboteur, and as you weaken the Nazis' hold on sections of Paris, your game goes into full color. So that's pretty cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
all these years I never knew that.
Yeah, it's pretty innovative. Like, there's certain prompts and certain like things that are like in bright red. If memory serves, it's like certain targets. I think like maybe head Nazis, things like that. So it was pretty dang cool of a game. So these games were like pretty innovative for their time. Like Star Wars Battlefront. I know that there was Battlefield out around the same time, but that was mostly PC. I want to say I don't recall, and this is just off of memory, so this might be wrong, but I don't recall a game like Star Wars Battlefront being on the console at that time, or at least I didn't own one at that time. So that was kind of cool, where you could fly, you could run around, there's heroes running around, you could do galactic conquest, and you could, you know, obviously like fly around and shoot down other ships via dogfighting, but you could also, you know, come in and, you know, assist your friends if you're playing co-op or playing online by actually doing, you know, air runs, air raids, whatever you want to call them, by bombing the enemy and that type of thing. So Pandemic sadly shut down, and it was all EA's fault. The end. No. So in 2007, so this is, you know, hot off the heels, a couple years after Mercenaries, a couple years after Destroy All Humans. So in 2007, EA acquired Pandemic Studios and a little sister studio known as BioWare as a part of a massive deal. Wow. The acquisition, valued at around $860 million, was meant to bolster EA's portfolio with high-quality action and RPG games. However, the industry was transitioning with rising development costs for next-gen consoles. At the time, next-gen was the PS3, Xbox 360, and the Pandemic had trouble adapting to the shift in the gaming landscape. There are a bunch of their key games, their key releases, because these games actually did see the light of day, that underperformed commercially, such as the game I already mentioned, The Saboteur, which is very unfortunate. And I have seen several videos on YouTube now, you know, fondly looking back on it, because it's really, really innovative and really, really cool. Mercenaries World in Flames, which is Mercenaries 2, that was released in 2008. And that game is sort of like, like I love the first Mercenaries. When it released on digital on Xbox One, when they did back compat, I bought it right away, no question, to make sure it was in my digital library. Unfortunately, Mercenaries World in Flames is just, I don't know, it was buggy. It was kind of like, it felt kind of rushed, and I didn't really enjoy it too much. And then you have sort of the Lord of the Rings side of things, with sort of like almost like a Battlefront clone, if you will, with Lord of the Rings Conquest, which released in 2009, where, like I said, you could go just like in Battlefront, where you go into different battles, you know, can call in different like heroes and stuff like that from the Lord of the Rings universe. You run around as like an archer or a swords guy. You run around, you know, you do your thing, all that type of stuff. And internal projects also faced delays, cancellation, and all the rest of it. So these games underperformed. A bunch of different projects, which I'm about to list off, you know, we're starting to have problems, and the financial strain at this point starts to add up. Add on what I already mentioned, the next gen, you know, kind of cost increase, and you have a bit of a recipe for a disaster. So by 2009, as a part of EA's larger restructuring during the global financial crisis, so you also had that looming, the studio was unfortunately closed, and it resulted in the layoff of around 200 employees. Now, there were some projects that were already in production at varying stages. One of them is very infamous, and I'll get into that in a moment. But basically, these are the projects that were in development at the time of shutdown. So Project Y, this was rumored to be a game that Pandemic was working on in the action-adventure genre, but it was internally canceled, so we didn't know much about it. Now, the next one here, this is the infamous one. The Dark Knight. So Pandemic was working on an open-world game based on the 2008 Batman film, which would have seen a huge licensed title. However, the game faced significant development issues. This included delays, technical hurdles, and creative struggles, and these issues reportedly caused EA to lose millions on the project, and it was ultimately canceled before the studio's closure. It was also unfortunate that because of these delays, it actually ended up, well, it didn't come out, like I said, but it would have missed, even if it did come out, it would have missed the launch of The Dark Knight in theaters, which is not great. And then this one here really hurts. It's like a Mercenaries 3, but it's a multiplayer. So Mercs Inc., a multiplayer follow-up, multiplayer-focused follow-up to the Mercenaries series, was in the early stages of development when the studio was shuttered. And after Pandemic was closed, some development work on this project was moved to other EA studios. So Mercenaries, it was still kind of like a big license at the time. Mercs 2 wasn't like too bad. So EA still had some hope with it, but unfortunately this never came to be, never materialized, never came out. So EA, facing its own internal financial pressures, was undergoing a large restructuring plan during 2008 through 2009, and this plan involved the shutdown of Pandemic, which I already mentioned. However, they started to focus on things that were a bit safer, arguably. Things like large-scale franchises like FIFA, Madden, and The Sims. And whereas, of course, Pandemic's, Mercenaries was kind of like, Battlefront was doing pretty good, and but Destroy All Humans and The Saboteur and all these other games doesn't really fit into the same sort of, I guess, franchise hit as FIFA, Madden, and The Sims, of course. So then, of course, unfortunately, Pandemic was shut down. Now, I want to kind of dive in a little more to the financial losses here, because The Dark Knight, that's the infamous game. There's been footage that I don't know if it's leaked or just been released or whatever on YouTube. Big disaster. Like, this game's budget just kept ballooning and ballooning and ballooning, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the Pandemic was just trying to, save this thing. This game wasn't running well, meaning the FPS was really bad. They just kept trying to fix it, fix it. And unfortunately, it just kept, getting a bigger bill, and it didn't seem to be doing anything but like kind of crawling toward the finish line. And they missed the release window for the Dark Knight's movie theatrical release, which was in mid-2008. And then EA had to reconsider, like, okay, well, does it make sense to continue to invest in a game that not only is now over budget and delayed, but also it's missing like a huge marketing opportunity launching on or around the time that the movie was in theaters. And then at this point, it's also like, by the way, this is a movie tie-in game. So coming hot off the heels of the PS2, movie tie-in games were very popular. However, they kind of started getting almost like a meme-like reputation where many of these games were just called in. Now, this game, if it were to have been, kind of fixed up and sort of sorted out, I think it would have been okay. However, I mean, it is justified in this case. EA starts to question, hey, does it make sense to have a movie tie-in game? The market for these games was shrinking. Publishers are becoming more cautious about investing of them, especially when delays cause the games to miss their key marketing strategies, things like this. And so it was, it's unfortunately, just everything all came together. 2008 financial crisis, Dark Knight was a big mess. Not the biggest franchises under their belt, although I'm sure that these franchises, if Pandemic were to be allowed to continue, would have actually, kind of blossomed, because even now in 2024, we're still seeing sort of the remnants of Pandemic out in the wild. So like I said, we saw Mercenaries get re-released on digital. That was a number of years ago, but even still on Xbox One, a number of years after they were closed. Also, Star Wars Battlefront and Star Wars Battlefront 2 was taken over by EA, and they made those games. And so that's, again, another impact that Pandemic has had on the gaming industry. I'm sure there's a bunch of others as well. You just reminded me that Battlefront came out on modern consoles, didn't it? Oh, right. The Battlefront 1 remake and Battlefront 2 remake from the early 2000s did come out. That's right. And or remastered, I guess. Remastered, remade, whatever, by Aspire, right? Yeah, that's crazy. Remember? I was going to buy it. It was a big buggy mess, apparently, and then it just disappeared off the radar. I just didn't hear anything about it. It was one of those things too where it was announced, it was coming out soon. People were super hype online. It was all, it was kind of crazy, and then kind of released and it was like, hey, this is shit, and then that was it. That's all I heard. This is garbage. Yep. Don't buy it.
Never heard if it got fixed or anything.
No, never heard if it got fixed. I mean, is it still around? Who knows? But I mean, that is another thing that, like, is a leftover remnant of Pandemic. So I mean, that's it. That's the sort of the rise, more or less the fall of Pandemic Studios. Definitely my favorite studio of the 2005-ish era, with the titles I already mentioned on the PS2. And that is your gaming fun fact.
Where are they now?
They have been laid off and shut down.
Yeah, but that talent had to go somewhere.
Oh, right.
Are they still around? What was the what did you mention about did you say BioShock or did you say BioWare?
BioWare, yeah. So BioWare was a sister studio to Pandemic, and it was part of the purchase deal. So when EA came in to buy Pandemic, they bought Pandemic and the sister studio BioWare.
That's when they got BioWare. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And they've been doing wonders with it ever since.
BioWare, the new Pandemic, ?
I mean, if their next game is bad, if Dragon Age is bad, I mean, I don't know what hope there is for them, But
this just goes to show you, right? It's like, Pandemic is kind of very reminiscent of BioWare. I mean, obviously they've been closely tied, but in a way where they, they're kind of the golden boy, right? For a while, they release a bunch of stuff. Like in the case of BioWare, they're releasing a bunch of Dragon Ages. People are, generally they really like it. Or even if it's sort of like so-so, it's still like 7s and 8s, right? Out of 10. And people are just sort of like, I kind of wanted it to be 9. It's like, well, don't we always, right? But it was never like, hey, this is a 2 out of 10. And then now it just kind of feels like BioWare is just in the shit ever since Anthem. And Anthem is kind of like BioWare's Dark Knight project, where it just seemed like they were going to do it, right? They were going to invest and recombobulate Anthem with Anthem 2.0. And then EA said, the heck with that.
It has to do with our big news story this week of Concord dying. Chasing that live service game and then completely collapsing.
Sad stuff.
So, all right. Well, thanks, Matt. That was interesting. We're going to move on to some of the news. And like I just said, Concord suddenly getting pulled offline with Sony promising full refunds. This comes to us from IGN. But it was also posted on the PlayStation blog. That's where everyone first learned about this. But PlayStation hero shooter Concord will be taken offline on September 6th. So that's actually when we're recording this. So that is today. For all players, all players will receive a refund. Sony announced today.
I thought you were doing a moment of silence, Ryan, for like one moment. I was like, man, you doing a moment of silence? Like, that's today.
No.
Moment of silence, please. Quiet, please. Like,
Director Ryan Ellis said, quote, while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we intended, end quote. Concord will therefore be taken offline so Sony and developer Firewalk Studios can explore options, including those that will better reach our players. The game will be removed from sale immediately, and anyone who purchased on the PlayStation Store or PlayStation Direct will be refunded their original payment method. Those who purchased on Steam and Epic Games will also be refunded in the coming days. So this game apparently took 8 years to develop. I think we also learned that it's like Sony bought it just like last year or so. Might actually be able to look that up, but this was pretty big news. I don't actually know what your take is yet, Adriano. What did you think about this?
I wasn't expecting much from this game to kind of be a Overwatch killer or Battleborn killer.
Well,
yeah,
it's mirroring Battleborn.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be a juggernaut in any. At the same time, I thought it was going to last us a little bit longer. Like this game was. I don't think it was heavily marketed, but it has this kind of weird following.
It was the opening game announcement at Sony's last State of Play or showcase or whatever they did.
Yeah, it's even being featured in like an online, like there's a famous YouTube video game documentary series. His name escapes me at the moment, but like Concord is being featured as like an upcoming big game that like is being featured in an episode.
Oh.
And so I'm wondering if they're going to bother editing it out or just keeping it there. But Same time, wasn't Sony all in on like live service games? They said they had at one point they had like double digits in development that they were just going to just throw whatever they had to at the wall and see what stuck.
Yeah, there was a they gave like a PowerPoint presentation of their upcoming plans for video game releases, and there were a bunch of live service games as part of that release. That also includes their investments into Bungie, because they had Marathon, which was going to be a live service game. And then, what was that Monkey Mask game, Matt? Do you remember the name of that one? Firewalk or something?
Oh my god. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't remember the name. I think it is Firewalk or something like that. I'll look it up while you guys talk.
Yeah, so they definitely were planning to go all in on games as a service.
Yeah, so I have sympathy for the developers. I have sympathy for the people who will be affected by this.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really would love to be a fly in the wall.
Yeah.
For the Sony meetings where they're just like flabbergasted. But yeah, I was shocked at how quickly this went down. I'm not shocked that it ultimately died. So rest in peace, Concord. We hardly knew ye.
I was gonna say the one thing that is really interesting is that this game started its life the year that Overwatch came out, and like we were talking about this last night in the party, was like that's a different time. Like the first Overwatch coming out feels like a different time in gaming. Like that's a long time ago, and so for these live service games to take this long to make, you're taking a big old risk because the market may have just moved on. Like I mean, Overwatch 2 isn't doing that great either, right?
Well, also the things though, Overwatch though, it actually started as like a single player, like another game altogether.
I thought it was like another MMO or something.
Yeah, like it wasn't intended to be what it ended up being. Like Blizzard just kind of rolled with the punches on that one, and that's what Overwatch eventually became.
I mean, same with Fortnite. Fortnite, it was a survival zombie game.
Yeah,
and then it became it's actually still a survival zombie game first, because that's the game you buy, and that's what the trophies are for. None of the trophies or achievements are for the battle royale. It's all for the zombie portion of the game.
Yeah, and especially with Fortnite, because it feels like they did dirty to what's the original
PUBG?
Battle. Yeah. Like I remember where I was when I first heard the premise about PUBG. When somebody first described it to me, it was my buddy Sean, and he's like, this is like you're just in this island and this bus dumps you on, and it's 100 players and just last one survival. I'm like, I think it was like, that is fucking genius. Like, that is such a brilliant concept. And then Fortnite just came in and just like, wow, we know our zombie survival thing, that is already like 1 foot in the ground at that point. It's like, I guess we'll just take this idea.
I guess you could kind of say the same about Overwatch, because Team Fortress was a hero shooter kind of deal, and then Overwatch came out, and I don't really hear anyone talk about Team Fortress anymore.
Yeah, but Team Fortress.
No, I haven't heard anything about Team Fortress in probably like at least 5-6 years, unless someone's talking about how they haven't heard about Team Fortress.
Team Fortress. Sorry, go ahead, man.
No, I was just gonna say I did do the research. Firewalk Studios is the people that made Concord. It's Fair Games with a dollar sign instead of an S.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with Team Fortress I can't imagine anyone is on the Xbox 360 or the server's even up anymore for 360.
For what? What game?
Are the online servers for 360 operational? Is Xbox Live even operational?
No, I think those were brought down.
So Team Fortress 2 360 can't exist anymore, and apparently the PC version is just full of fucking cheat bots. Apparently they're not supporting
it then.
Yeah, there's just nothing but cheat bots in that entire thing.
Okay, so just a ghost game.
Yeah.
Sony bought Firewalk Studios in April 20th, or around April. This is when they announced it. April 20th, 2023. So just last year, a little over a year, they bought the studio, and so that means they knew what the game looked like and how it was kind of shaping up to be. They thought it was good enough to buy. They bought the studio. It comes out and it was a disaster. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, you know what really sucks about these live service games is I feel like it's almost better, and this is like an estimate, to just sort of make a good game, and if it does well, then be like, hey, we should sell DLC for this. Hey, we should put a store in this type of thing, rather than making these big announcements like this is a live service game and trying to like capitalize on that. Maybe that's stupid. Like maybe you should be planning your marketing and your post-launch plan right away. And like maybe I'm naive and think that it's like easy to do that. Or I don't think it's easy to do that, but like easy enough. Maybe it's way harder than I think. But I don't know. It's just like this feels just like a classic flop. The thing that I'm so shocked about though is it was something like on Steam, wasn't it? Under 1,000 players at peak were playing Concord or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like at launch or something like that. And like to me, it's like, man, like a YouTube video on a channel that has like 0 subscribers can, quote unquote, easily get 10,000 like views if it's a good video, right? If it has a good thumbnail, this and that, if the game is played. Whereas with these huge games that have tons of exposure released by huge companies, I would expect it to be a flop at 10,000. To not even hit 1,000 is astonishing to me.
697, Matt. So not even 700.
That is astonishing. And I understand that that's only one platform, but still.
Well, I was going to say the analysts are predicting it sold 25,000 copies, which is abysmal. But I don't know. I guess Sony's really lucky that Astrobot just came out, because that one's getting major high scores.
Even if that's the case, Sony can take a major flop like this. They have so many original IPs and so much loyalty.
But their focus on wanting a successful games as a service game makes me worried. Look at The Last of Us. They tried to make a games as a service game with The Last of Us with Naughty Dog, and they canceled it. So clearly they saw something horrible happening there, or I don't know what happened, but I don't know.
And just one thing too is the Xbox 360 is still apparently active. There's a chat in here from 6 to 3 months ago, because there's multiple comments on Reddit talking about what's active and what isn't, and so a bunch of people are talking about that. The Xbox 360 store, however, has been shut down.
Okay, that's what was shut down. Okay.
This is you know what's crazy about Concord is like it's very reminiscent of Suicide Squad, like the game Suicide Squad that we were or like maybe are going to try because it was free.
Oh, yeah, Adrian wants to
on Prime Game. I mean, I'll try it. Here's the thing though: is like, is it better reputationally to do what Sony's doing and say, okay, shut it down, give full refunds, get the heck out of here? Or do you think it's better to do as Suicide Squad is doing and they're just keeping it on? Like, just the servers are on. You can go play it if you want.
Well, they obviously, I think, are going to try to retool Concord. I don't know what they're doing with Suicide Squad. I think they're just hoping maybe if they keep releasing new seasons and new characters that at some point people are going to check it out like us. I don't know.
What was the other season-based game? Maybe it is Suicide Squad. Was it another?
Flopped?
Yeah. Was there a Marvel one?
Avengers.
Oh, right.
From Square Enix.
How's that doing?
It's dead. You can't play it anymore. Or
even
you can play the
player?
campaign, I think. You can play the campaign, but because they still sell it. It's still like $5 on Steam or something.
Oh, man.
But yeah, the whole multiplayer aspect is offline. That's wild. I think I forgot about that one too. I haven't heard anyone bring that up when talking about Concord either.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the game was supposed to be delisted as well, wasn't it? Like Avengers. So I remember there was like talk that the online service was going to remain open, but like they were going to get rid of the store or something like that.
So you had to buy it before then, and you could still have access to it, but you're not able to purchase it anymore.
So this is on the subreddit Play Avengers. So this is not from an official source. It's a discussion. It says, if a game delists, can I still play online? And the content says, when this game delists in September, if I own it, can I still download / play with mates online if we all own the game? Or will the servers go offline also? And then some people just say, yes, you can. And then this one says the game uses peer-to-peer connection, so there aren't any actual servers for multiplayer. So there weren't any actual servers for multiplayer in the first game, so we are good.
So, what's interesting about this is that you always think, or the studios always want to rely on existing IP because they think it's safer, right? So why we always get sequels and stuff, or things based off of some other big franchise like Avengers or Suicide Squad. But clearly, a new IP. Everyone wants new IP, but that failed. But then you also have to look at the ones based on IP. That also failed. So it's all just up in the air. You never know what's going to work until it's out in the hands of the people and they actually see whether they like it or not. What I find interesting in both this and Suicide Squad's cases, though, is that you could tell from a distance these games were bad. What they showed off during their trailers was not enticing or enjoyable or looked like fun at all. And they both had super long development cycles. It's like, I don't know what's wrong with the gaming industry right now, but they need to get back to shorter development cycles. They can't keep doing this because, like we were talking about, things change. If you start to make an Overwatch game when Overwatch comes out and it takes you 8 years, that might not be what's popular anymore. And you don't have time to pivot when you have a massive multi-million dollar budgeted game. So there has to be some kind of fix in the industry right now because it's just, I feel like it's unsustainable.
Well, like you and I were talking actually earlier today, Ryan, and I was saying how it almost makes sense to have sort of like two sort of production lines on the go, where you have one production line that's doing shorter games, whether they're literally shorter or just shorter to develop, or are consistently supported. Like you release them, with a Kickstarter, early access, one of those projects or programs, and then you constantly improve it. And if the game, completely falls off or whatever, then you kind of, quickly wrap it up and you move on to the next project, and you don't have, no income, no, feedback from users for 8+ years. Because if you release a game in an early state and it's early access and people complain, you still got time to fix it, right? And you've also released it in, a semi-unfinished or literally unfinished state. So it also buys you time. Or they could do, in that same quicker assembly line, they could do something like a mobile game where they constantly pump out, some mobile games to make sure that revenue is ready, while the second production line takes 8 years or whatever it is to finish a game. Because if Concord comes out and it fails, it's like, it's all good. We got 4 other projects that have already released, right? Maybe one's in progress, and we have revenue. So we can take Concord offline, mess around with it, try to get it working again, try to get people excited for it. If it doesn't work, it's okay, because that short production line just keeps on pumping stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a reason why indie studios, do well. Obviously, they're smaller. And oftentimes they don't even have literally like studios. Oftentimes it's just like, freelancers and stuff like that. So like they have a lot less overhead. And so they are able to pump out stuff and, basically take risks, because it's like, oh, it took 2 years to make this. It failed, it kind of sucks, but like now we can go to the next thing. They're not spending, like all their money and all their loans and then be like, well, this game didn't do well. That's it. We're done.
Some publishers tried that. I remember Square Enix had like a little indie section. That's when they made Life is Strange and stuff like that. EA has their indie program where they sponsor things like what was that game you enjoyed, Matt? The two brothers, not brothers, but two brothers.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
A Way Out.
Oh, that game's fucking awesome. Yeah.
They also did the what's the robot climbing one where you climbed a bunch of vines. Grow Up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yep.
That was EA's indie stuff.
Holy man, I barely remember that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, some publishers do that. I don't know how if it works or not, but
well, it's probably the thing, right, where it's like, hey, we have staff on these projects that are shorter lived, and they're not like they're shorter lived, and they're not as what would you even say? Like they're not as profitable. So we may as well put everybody on this, and then all our eggs in one basket. But if it makes us millions or billions, it's worth it. It's sort of like, yes, but the problem is that if there's a failure, you're going to take a blow. And again, you and I were talking about this earlier, Ryan. Sometimes that blow is enough to take you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Microsoft says Apple's 30% fee makes Xbox cloud gaming on iOS app as an iOS app impossible. This is from Mac Rumors. So Apple has allowed cloud gaming apps on the App Store since earlier this year, but cloud gaming services still haven't bothered making iOS apps. Microsoft recently explained why, telling UK regulators that it didn't bring the Xbox cloud gaming to Apple's App Store because the rules are still too restrictive. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority is investigating mobile browsers and cloud gaming and put out a call for comments. Microsoft responded in July and said that while cloud gaming apps are technically allowed, there are still multiple rules that cloud gaming apps can't comply with for technical and economic reasons. Microsoft's chief complaint is that the App Store rules require subscriptions and features to be made available on iOS devices with in-app purchase, which is not feasible. A consumption-only situation where content is purchased on another platform and played on iOS is not allowed for cloud gaming apps. Also, Apple's 30% commission fee makes it impossible for Microsoft to monetize its cloud gaming service, and it is neither economically sustainable nor justifiable. So it's kind of funny that Apple did really they did update their App Store rules and allow game streaming apps, but of course it's not as easy as just having your own app stream your games and be able to purchase the subscription for it and stuff. But this just seems like an endless saga of Apple fighting these streaming things. But do either of you still have a desire to stream games?
In an ideal situation, I would, yes.
What's that ideal situation?
Catalog ownership. And so like,
oh, you want to own the games?
Yeah. And it's like virtually no latency.
Yeah. That's a big one.
So, yeah. That is my desire for streaming games. So
the Xbox Series X uses some, I don't know, some black magic, almost in a way, and it's virtually, in my experience, virtually latency free. I actually played a fair bit of Forza Horizon on there, the latest one.
But you kind of need quick responses, right?
Yeah, it took maybe honestly a turn or two to get adjusted to it, because it is a little bit of delay, and then it was just fine. It was totally fine when I played it on there. But in terms of if I do I have a desire to game stream? I mean, I like that it's there as an option, and I have the desire to keep it there in the event that an update hasn't downloaded, or if somebody wants to do something, I have it, but I don't have it downloaded. It sucks to be well, I gotta have to wait. It's gonna have to copy, blah 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 blah. It's no, I'll just hop into it now, and if we're gonna continue this, I'll download it for the future. So I like it for that. It's almost like a backup gaming method in a way. So, and we're not going to do it now, but we were potentially talking about using game streaming even for the stream to do Halo 5 Guardians, because it's console only and we are streaming from PCs.
Mm-hmm. I think it's funny that, first of all, I guess what is the benefit of having a Xbox Game Pass streaming app on the App Store? I guess discoverability. Most people aren't going to go to the website, to stream there, which they can currently do on Safari on iOS. And then I also find the 30% thing funny, because Xbox charges 30% for selling games on their store, but yet they're angry at Apple for having a 30% thing. That feels like they're just piling on because Apple's getting attacked for that, but they do it themselves.
Well, it's the 30%, I know it says here, makes it impossible for Microsoft to monetize its cloud gaming service. It's neither economically sustainable nor justifiable. Is that because they're the profit margin on the subscriptions that we're paying is below 30%?
Probably.
Is that the reason? So
and they don't want to increase the cost on iOS, I guess.
Well, could you imagine an increase, a lopsided increase of not just 30%, but 45%?
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, though, I think subscriptions are 30% for the first year and then drop to 15%. I think. I'm not an expert on the App Store guidelines.
Even if that's true, that would be quite the hit to take for quite a long time.
It's Microsoft.
Yeah, but I mean, how many people do we have numbers? Not right now, but do we have numbers on how many people are actually Xbox Cloud Gaming, or how many people would, I guess, estimated be cloud gaming on an iOS device?
I don't know. I've even heard that Fortnite wasn't actually that popular on iOS, despite all the hullabaloo from Tim Sweeney.
Well, because they made Fortnite actually playable in the browser, right? And I think it was playable in the browser without a subscription or something like that.
Did they really?
Too. Yeah, I remember.
That sounds crazy.
It was something like that where people were saying, "Oh, it's returned to the iPhone" or something, and it was you didn't even need Game Pass. You could just go to whatever it was, Xbox.com/Fortnite or something, and you could just stream it. I tried it just for the sake of it, not on an iPhone, just on my Android, and it was okay. I was surprised at how well it ran, but that was about it.
But I'm just saying, in terms of the 30%, if I'm not mistaken, I think Microsoft charges for their Xbox store a 30% fee. And it's just funny that they're complaining that when they join a store, they don't want to pay the 30% fee. It's they're trying to have it both ways here, And they also don't want to force you to get the subscription outside the app, I guess. They want you to do it in the app, because they talked about the in-app purchase, for the subscription.
You can now, right? You can say, hey, buy this on our website.
Yeah, that was like the one thing Apple lost in the.
I thought that was only in the EU though.
No, so when there was like 9 rulings or whatever it was, however many number, Apple won all of them except for one, and the one they lost was anti-steering, because before Apple said you couldn't in the app say for a lower price, go to our website in your browser and subscribe there, right? They weren't allowed to do that, but now I guess Apple is in the US has been told that they have to allow developers to say, "Oh, you can get a cheaper price here," and then link out to it or something like that.
I'm actually surprised they're allowed to get away with that.
Apple?
Sorry. No, I'm surprised that they were. Let me rephrase that. I'm surprised that they're being told that they can't do that. I thought that they would be allowed to continue to do that.
Apple. You're talking about Apple?
Yeah. Specifically,
that was the one they saw as the only anti-competitive law that Apple broke.
So, and the thing is, though, I kind of see it both ways with that, specifically because if they're saying that if the judge is saying or the court's saying that Apple, you have to tell people that it's available somewhere else for cheaper, I'd be like, that's not fair because now we're telling people that they can go save money and not give us the amount that we think we deserve to facilitate this order. I think that they should be forced to say that's available somewhere else, but they should say in the app, hey, you have other options to buy this. You can buy it from here. And then have the person go navigate to that portal, like that Epic Games portal, and then to see what the price is there. But I'm wondering, is Apple specifically required to actually say to the user in the app that it's cheaper somewhere else, or that they can just get it somewhere else and not say the price?
I think it might be get it somewhere else. I don't know if they can list the price or not. And I think it's up to the developer. It's not Apple doing this now. The ruling was that Apple has to allow developers to say, oh, you can subscribe elsewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
But it's all very weird because it's like, can you imagine if, I don't know if they actually, like, let's say Reebok was selling shoes in Walmart. Can you imagine if they were allowed to set up a sign and said, if you go to the Reebok store down the street, you can get it for like 10% cheaper. Like, that's just bizarre. Like, the App Store is Apple's store, Although I guess the inside the app is different, right?
Yeah.
Inside the app, you've already gone through the App Store to get it. And then that's where the sign appears. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. I'm okay with them saying you have to let developers say that it's available somewhere else. I'm with Apple if they say they shouldn't force Apple to say. Sorry, they should be able to tell Apple to tell developers that you can't say it's cheaper somewhere else, only that it's available somewhere else. That I would fight.
Yeah,
that's what I think is weird.
Matt, I remember you predicting that Apple might.
Times.
We
live in interesting times.
Okay, Matt, I remember you mentioning that you thought Apple was going to come up with their own streaming service for games at some point because they do have Apple Arcade, which has been having issues recently. A lot of developers have talked about issues with the service that they're in, but I don't know if you would ever need to stream mobile games.
Well, it was more of a question of, they have the Apple Arcade, and they don't necessarily need to stream the games that are on Apple Arcade right now because they're designed for a mobile platform anyway to run on iPhones and iPads, and maybe Macs. I'm not sure. I'm not in that ecosystem. But there was a lot of talk about how the Apple TV, meaning their set-top box, was going to kind of become, or was slowly kind of just becoming like an all-in-one media console, including a game console to an extent. And then my kind of thought was, maybe some of those games from the Apple Arcade could be streamable, but also why wouldn't they get into the market of, hey, CD Projekt Red, hey this, hey that, whoever, get some connections, come on over. Like, we have game streaming on, Apple TV. Because Samsung has it. Samsung has the Samsung Gaming Hub built right into their TVs. Yeah. So it's like, why wouldn't they kind of breach out and extend the Apple Arcade program? However, I will say that if they were to do that, I think that they would preemptively or at the same time release or be more loose with these rules in some way. Like, they would probably try to entice other streaming platforms to come onto their app store for competition, which sounds stupid. But I feel like if they were to open up effectively, you know, the Apple Game Pass, you know, they recombobulate the Apple Arcade. It's now called Apple Game Pass. And then Xbox, you know, maybe they do have an argument here about this 30%. Then it starts becoming like, hey, you know, Apple's kind of toeing the line of anti-competitive practices, and then they're like, you know, stepping on the toes of a competitor and then copying the competitor. I can see them getting into court, whether it's justified or not. And I feel like they would try to avoid that. I will say, though, having discussed all this, like, it is kind of weird that, like, Microsoft just doesn't say you have to sign in with an active Xbox Game Pass Ultimate account. If you want one, go to this website.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, that sounds really bizarre. Like, that sounds like a pretty fair shake. Like, what? Because
I think they're trying to expand their subscriber base. And to do that, it would be more seamless for the consumer to download the Game Pass app, and it says subscribe today or whatever, how much money, and you just hit, oh, okay, hit subscribe, and you're done. They want it to be as easy as possible to give them money, right? And they don't want any barriers or link into outside things and then having to log in with your Microsoft account, all that crap, right? I think that's what they want. They want an app that's on the App Store because that's where everyone goes to get their apps. I think even if other app stores come on to iOS, people are still going to go to the App Store because that's just what they know already. You know, we've been living with the iPhone since 2008 with an App Store. So I think they're looking for the least path of resistance.
Well, like, I understand that from a UX perspective, but if they're so desperate to raise their subscriber count, you'd figure you'd cast the widest net possible. Now, maybe they have numbers or, you know, information that says, you know, we're going to invest X amount of money to put it on iOS, and then because we don't have a seamless checkout process, that people are not going to do it. Maybe that's why that's how they're justifying it, and that's why their complaints are there. And then, you know, maybe that's valid. They would have those numbers, but like, you know, at the end of the day here, it's like I feel like the people are still going to have to fiddle. They're still going to have to sign in with a Microsoft account. Like, they're not going to allow you to have your Game Pass Ultimate tied to your Apple ID exclusively, and then you sign in to your Apple ID to your Microsoft account, unless there's a way to tie your Apple ID and Microsoft account together. And also, I was going to ask you, Ryan, so because you know iOS way better, like, if you sign into an app, for example, sometimes it opens up a web view and then you just kind of like do it in the app. Is it possible that when you've signed in, so let's just like hypothetically say in this, you know, fake scenario, that you download the Xbox Game Pass app, you then go to, you know, sign in, and then it says, hey, you do not have an active Ultimate subscription. Click here to get one. When you click that, it goes to the website. Can that website be automatically logged in because you've just logged in? I don't know enough about how the iPhone passes that stuff off.
Hang on, let's start over here.
So you download the app.
Game Pass. Yeah.
Yeah, you download the Game Pass app. It tells you the very first thing you have to sign in with a Microsoft account, because that's almost assuredly going to be a thing regardless of where they pay. You sign in with your Microsoft account, and then it says, hey, you do not have a Game Pass Ultimate subscription. Click here to get one. You click here, it loads a web page. Is it possible for it to use the same credentials automatically from your app login to log you into the browser tab or the web view, whatever it is? I don't know how Apple passes that, or if it allows it.
I don't think it does. I don't want to say that with 100% surety, but I don't think it does. I don't. You can have apps talk to each other in that way. So if I log into my Microsoft Word app, right, and then I download PowerPoint, it'll share the login. It will actually take the login and be it that way. But I don't know if that works in Safari, and I don't know if that works in a web view that pops up in the app, right? Because that's like a separate instance of like a Safari, right? So I'm going to say no, but I don't know for sure.
Because if that's possible in some way, that would be the ultimate way to do it, right? You would just open up a web view, open up a browser tab. You're already signed in. It could take you right to the account page. Like they may have to change the UX of purchasing Game Pass Ultimate a bit, but they could take you right to the iOS purchasing page. They could tailor that experience, and then it's, you know, a couple clicks and, you know, you're off to the races.
Yeah. So I want Apple to open up stuff like this. I think it only helps them kind of be a gaming platform, which it seems like they're trying to be, you know. So I hope they find some way, but I kind of doubt it at this point. I think they're going to fight tooth and nail until they're forced legally. So, all right, let's move on to our last story for the week. Ubisoft shares take a hit as analysts predict lower than expected Star Wars Outlaws sales. It's from IGN. This one's a sad story for me, Matt. Massive Entertainment Star Wars Outlaws, the first open world Star Wars video game, launched on August 27th, And since then, Ubisoft's share price has fallen 12.6% to a near 10-year low of 15.22 euros. At the time of this article's publication, Ubisoft was valued at 1.996 billion euros. Ubisoft failed to announce a sales target for Star Wars Outlaws ahead of the launch, although it did say it expected the game to boost its earnings. According to Reuters, JP Morgan and analyst Daniel Kerven said Star Wars Outlaws, quote, has struggled to meet our sales expectations despite positive critical reviews, end quote. I don't know what happened with this game. It felt like people were excited, and then the reviews came out, and some were positive, and some were very negative. And do you think that has any effect on the sale of a game?
I mean, I think it has an effect, but what's really interesting now these days is that it feels like, and this is just from talking to it, a limited sample size of people, it feels like people have lost faith in a lot of the larger critical outlets, a lot of the people that review. And I feel like a lot of people go to social media, they go to, maybe individual influencers or smaller channels. And I do hear a lot of negative stuff about Star Wars Outlaws, including like, IGN, of course, is going to rate it high. This company, that company, this company. Yeah, like these companies are, of course, they're going to rate it high. They're paid off. They're this, they're that, whatever. I hear that a lot, and I feel like there's been like this weird shift that's happened. I don't know exactly what it is. Like maybe I'm right about people going to individual influencers, because there's certainly like if you are a person that is extremely critical of games, right? You're extremely critical. You analyze every little tiny thing. You like get really, really, really into it. It makes total sense for you to go to an influencer that does the same thing, right? They check the performance, they're checking the FPS, they're checking like almost like the science of the game. They're checking to see like, hey, I had fun doing this, but like I shouldn't have because like these quests aren't made in a certain game design way. If you're a fan of that and you go to someone who's super critical, then, a lot of the stuff that comes out is going to be criticized a lot. And so then you're going to get a skewed opinion toward that, I would imagine. Nothing wrong with that. Like if you're really critical, you're a really critical person, but like it's weird that like this is the second game in recent memory. What was the other game? Hellblade was received critically well, and it just kind of seemed to like everyone was super hype. It comes out, it's like, hey, this game's pretty good, and then everyone's like, yeah, but it sucks, and then it kind of gets shut down. Like that's what it feels like. That's the vibe I'm getting, and it's so weird.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's fair. So I've been playing Star Wars Outlaws, and maybe I'll talk more about this in what we're playing. But as far as I can tell, it's a standard game, and so these people who are like absolutely hating it, I almost feel like they're just kind of done with standard games, and maybe that's the case. And what's funny is, Adriano, you predicted this game, but it wasn't the game you predicted. I almost wonder if this would have been the games as a service game that would have done well, if they just made the Division Star Wars, and they already know how to make a good Division game because they've done it twice, and they just put a Star Wars skin on it, and maybe it would have been awesome.
Yeah, and I haven't played this game, but I'm wondering if it just meets basic Star Wars needs and wants. Like, does a droid follow you around?
You have a droid companion. I don't think he follows you around. He's more of a partner than a.
Is it first person or third person?
Third person, but you have Nyx. You have a little alien creature that follows you around. You can use him to like open doors and distract guards. And
as third person.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not the word.
It would be bad if it was first person.
Well, no, it'd be better. I think it'd be better if it'd be like what you want in a Star Wars game is to feel like you're in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And so, okay, perfect example is like I think it was one of the Battlefront games. I don't remember which one, or one of the many online Star Wars games that we played. Like when you're on the ground and you go and want to get into like an X-wing or like a TIE, or one of the Rebel fighter ships or whatever, and what do you do to get in that ship? Remember, what was the process?
In which game? I don't know.
in Battlefront, the multiplayer games. Do you remember how we got in those ships?
Could you get into them in the most recent ones?
There were segments where you're flying around, right? There's battles in the sky and there's battles on the ground, right?
I suppose there was, yeah, but I don't remember how you get into them. Was it a cutscene?
It's exactly, you don't remember because it's a fucking floating icon. Well, it's like, oh, there's you get like you hear in the field or you hear in the radio transmission, it's like, hey, there's an X-wing available, and then you go to like a predetermined, like one of three predetermined spots, and there's a little floating icon, and you run into it, and then does like the George Lucas side, the and
then you're in the fighter,
and then you're just in a fucking fighter. It's like, no, that's what you don't like. You want, preferably in first person. You can take it in third, but first person, it's like you want to climb up that fucking ladder. You want to pull open that latch. You want to jump in and actually start seeing the clicks and the clacks, and you want to hit switches and maybe even look behind you and see an R2 unit kind of be dropped in, and you want to feel that takeoff of that. You want, Star Wars is all about feeling and putting you in that moment. And if Outlaws is not capturing that, then it just kind of falls into the wayside of Assassin's Creed open world or Batman Arkham's open world or whatever.
Well, I think that's the complaint, is that it's just like the Assassin's Creed Star Wars game.
Exactly.
However, I think the world is so compelling that they made that it does feel like you're in Star Wars. But I don't know if you get that. Well, you get your speeder bike. You hop on your speeder bike, and you know, she has like cool, unique animations for depending on which way you actually approach the speeder bike. I sent you guys one on our PlayStation chat. I don't know if you watched it, but if you come at the front, she like climbs up the front and like twirls around and then sits on the seat. So there's cool stuff like that. You can get into a ship. I haven't done it yet. You can get into a ship and take off into space, but it's not like you're in control. I think you get in the ship, you sit in the pilot seat, and then it just kind of takes off for you. But it is one trip. You see the ship the whole time, you know.
Well, I mean, a small point on that is like you and I were discussing this, Ryan, is like people were arguing, you know, the Starfield method sucks and the No Man's Sky method is better, where No Man's Sky, you quite literally fly down, you choose wherever to land, you land. You can even fly in atmosphere. You could fly your ship around like an aircraft and use it to like aerially bomb your enemies, you know, if you really wanted to. But like with Star Wars Outlaws, it does not do the Starfield cutscene approach, where Starfield has a cutscene when you take off and when you land, and it's really brief. This thing is like, it's taking you in, and you're flying, and you're flying, and you're flying, and then you land. And I've heard arguments on X where people were saying, you know, Bethesda is now arguably respecting my time more than what this game does, because like, at least in No Man's Sky, I was flying it. This thing is like, I'm going to show you this character landing. Right. It'd be almost like if you ordered food from like the cantina and it was like, well, it's a 20-minute wait. It's pretty busy. You know, it's like, well, Jesus, like, I mean, I guess I'm here for realism, but I don't know about that. You know, it's a bit much. I wanted to say something else to your point, Adriano, is that like it feels so much better even in the old Battlefronts, meaning like the ones from like 2004 and whatever, 2005 or whatever it was. To like run over to your ship, and even though it's not animated, you run to your ship and you like press a button to hop in and you blast off. Like the amount of times I was like under fire, about to die, you like heroically, you know, jump into the ship. You're like, holy fuck, I get the hell out of here, and you blast off and you get the hell out of there. Like that's such a more like you're so much more emotionally connected to the battle and to your ship at that point than being like, run into the random icon and have a cutscene bring you in. It's like, Jesus, like, do I have to?
Yeah, there's two ways that I see that you can kind of approach it. You can make it like a task and like make it just very agent-like, where you just go up to it and you press and hold square, or you press and hold X and it does it. Or you can make it feel like you're in a fight for your life. And I'm not saying you have to do it every time, but one of the few things I'll give the JJ Star Wars movie is they captured it well as in the episode 7 when like Rey and Finn are running in the junkyard, and they haven't, like, they're running to get off the planet, and they have to like deviate a path because the ship they were running for blew up, and then they deviated towards the Millennium Falcon, and then how they're just kind of barely getting by, and that's that energy and that capture kind of needs to be there. So
you're 100% right. Like it feels like games now are moving toward, whether it's for a technical reason or not, are moving more toward a clean aesthetic or a clean way to present it to us. Whereas if we think about one of the better Battlefields, or at least my favorite Battlefield, which is Battlefield 1, like we've all played that to some extent, and Battlefield 1, you know, didn't really do anything too new other than like raise the scale and, you know, better graphics, things like that. But like nothing too new, but holy fuck did it feel like you were fighting in a war in that game. Things are going off, you're blowing up, you're using this shitty technology, you're like, there are people around you are dying, there's flamethrowers, people are screaming, there's gas, people are hacking up. Like, it's fucked. Like, you leave a fight in that game, like, we've had fights in that game where it's an hour and a half. Like, you're fighting for an hour and a half, and you get to the end of it, you're like, Jesus Christ. Like, I know it's just a video game, but holy fuck. Now it's like call in an airstrike, and then you like watch the jets come over and boom, boom, boom. You know, it's just like cool, I guess.
The best Star Wars game that I've played recently is Helldivers 2.
Yeah, that's good.
You running around on that forest or on the like this, the planets are very Star Wars like, whether it's desert or forest or volcanic or whatever. And it's fitting that you're in soldier uniforms that are faceless, that they're very Stormtrooper like. And it's the best camera shake. It's like the best feeling war game that I've ever played. And it's a shame that the Helldivers can't be captured in a Star Wars game.
People made those Star Wars mod for Helldivers, and it looked awesome. When you're fighting the robots, you know, it just looked awesome. It's just like, I remember the first time I played Helldivers 2, and it was just like, yeah, if I was a stormtrooper shooting a blaster, this would be so cool. You know, I wish they would make that. But one thing I like about Helldivers 2 is like how vulnerable you feel. And so it is a fight for your life, you know? And when you die, it's not just like you ragdoll, like you explode. Like if something like destroys you, your chunks go everywhere. You know, it's more visceral. A Disney game will never do that with Star Wars. Yeah. They will never allow that with Star Wars.
Even though the clone troopers and most of the stormtroopers are just clones anyways.
Yeah.
And you could just recycle. Honestly, Helldivers should just have been a Star Wars game. Because then it's like, here's your ship of clones, and at least that way there's a narrative framework as to why you keep on firing yourself down every time.
If they were smart too, they could just do an expansion, have a separate thing in the game where you go play a Star Wars mission on some Star Wars planet.
Yeah,
But anyway,
do you guys think, just a real brief question based on this, like, do you guys think that if let's say EA or name a big studio were to come out with like a Helldivers, do you think they'd get made fun of for being like, why is like a AAA studio releasing something that's so small, whereas like an indie studio gets praised as being like, whoa, this is really well done for an indie studio? Like, you were looking at it through the lens of like what type of studio is coming from, because I mentioned this in previous episodes where people are like quite literally on social media zooming in on like fucking characters' eyeballs. Like they were zooming in on Aloy and zooming in on Senua, I think it is, from Hellblade. And they were like checking like this many eyelids. Oh, that eyelid has a bit of like, a bit of tears or like water on there. And so it's reflecting. It's like, holy Christ, like who's zooming in this much?
I don't think the developer so much. Maybe the publisher might raise questions, but yeah, I'm going to say no. Like, if they wanted to make a smaller game, I don't think it would raise eyebrows.
Because it feels like we've gone from, like, focusing gameplay to focusing presentation. Because it's like, let's see what we can make the Series X do. And I get that, but it's like, also, it's like, yeah, but I'd like to have fun as well.
I mean, this is an extreme example, but I think it goes to what Matt's talking about. What if Naughty Dog's next game was like a match 3 game?
Yeah, that's a good question.
They would get crucified, like people would be hating that completely. It's like there's a subset of gamers who are like demanding bigger and bigger games, I guess, or at least that's the perception that these studios have or the publishers have. That you have to have the most amazing graphics and all this thing, and that's what's bloating the budgets and what's taking them years to develop these things.
Yeah, I don't think I agree that a match 3 game would raise eyebrows.
That's extreme. I understand. I'm just saying.
But if we split the difference and went with if I almost want Naughty Dog to go back to their roots and just make like another Spyro game, just to fucking throw a wrench in people's saying, be like, you shouldn't be making this. Like, this is what they used to make. They used to do. Not
Spyro,
but the Crash.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the people who make Ellie and Drake used to make this cartoon Bandicoot character running around.
I mean, Insomniac does it. Insomniac, has like the bigger games, like the Marvel games that are, like big, obviously big license, big games, critically successful, fun to play. But then they still come back and they still make Ratchet and Clank, and they still put their heart and soul in it, and it's like that last Ratchet and Clank game is fucking awesome.
All right, that's it for the news. Moving on to what we're playing. Adriano, since you've not been here in a long time.
It's gonna be a big list. Buckle up, buckaroo.
I mean, you don't have to do everything. Just the
He's
last
got
week.
the spreadsheet. He's got the spreadsheet ready.
I got the list.
Don't need to hear every little game you played. Just the ones that are notable.
He played the Last of Us Match 3 game.
Actually, you need to play The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, I have not played that yet.
All right, take it away, Adriano.
So, I have touched a little bit of Diablo. I've touched
original OG
Diablo. I've actually played more. The problem is on my laptop. I don't have the save file here, so it's over there somewhere. Sea of Thieves. I've touched a little bit of that. I think I might have mentioned this game previously. I don't know if I actually started it last time we played, but I finished it since. Killer Frequency. Did I talk to you guys about that game?
Not to my recollection.
It's a fun game. It's on Steam. You can go look up what it visually looks like. The premise of it is you're an overnight. The game takes place in 1980 something, like late 80s. And the reason why they framed it was like that is because they didn't want cell phones as part of the narrative thing. But you're an overnight DJ in a small town, not like a super small town, but a small town to where there's like 3 police officers. And it turns out that this one night overnight, this serial killer is on the loose. And the serial killer takes out most of the police force, like the 3 sheriffs. And the sheriff says, hey, I need to drive these guys to a hospital next town over. They go, you need to man the phones. And not like because they don't have a 911 dispatch. You as a overnight DJ, you are now taking emergency calls. So you got your disc jockey booth and you're like putting on records, and then you'll get somebody be like, oh my God, like there's a killer coming to my house. What do I do? And then you're given options. You're like, you could tell them to go up the stairs and hide in the bathtub. Or you can tell them, try the lock on the back door, try to escape. So then there's a bunch of, then you could then like, depending on what it is, you can save the person or you can hear them get brutally murdered.
Oh,
but it's funny. But then it's funny because like if they die, then it's like, you have to just move on with your night. You're like, okay, I guess that's it for that. Let's put on the next record. And you put on like the next thing, and then you'll go through a song, and then like the next victim will pop up, and then you have like a map of the town beside you. So it's like, hey, I'm here and I need to get to this street because there's somebody's chasing me. Like, what's the easiest route? It's like, oh, this is the easiest route. But then when you have to realize that on your desk, like in a pamphlet somewhere, just randomly, there's a note saying that there's construction on that road, to not take that road. So you have to like keep those factors in mind. And then in between each major case, you get to go up and you get to explore another part of the radio station. Like you get to explore the downstairs or the basement. And then there's some, twists and turns that take with what's exactly going on in the town. Very fun game. If you want to kill a Saturday, you can probably get it out in one sitting. Ryan and I are playing some Borderlands 3. Yes, we are.
Finally.
Yeah. Woo, Borderlands 3, the greatest game of 2018, maybe when it came out? I don't know.
Greatest game on Pandora.
Yeah.
I
did some Mario Party with my playthrough group. We're doing every map of Mario Party on every Mario Party game. Do some things like Vampire Survivors. We started a game, the 3 of us, when we played it one night, and we never went back to it, called Pal Worlds.
That's right.
Holy crap.
And we never went back to it.
Neither did anyone else, I think.
Yeah, no one else. It died off really quick. Remember when the lawsuits were being discussed? Now nobody gives a shit.
I hope Pokemon still makes a game like that, though. That would be huge, I think.
Yeah, that would be gangbusters. My board game group and I, that's including my brother, we were playing The Division. 2 of them dropped off. They did not like it. And my brother and I tried to continue.
They didn't like it.
They're not like shooter games like that. And I'm not surprised that half of them fell off. My brother and I tried to push it a little bit further. He then eventually fell off. So I'm like, all right, it's fine. My girlfriend and I played some Overcooked. I played some Mario Tennis, apparently, like the N64 one, at some point as well. Helldivers 2. Dead Cells, I actually
decided to to sunset it. I actually said,
"Oh my god,
yeah, I'm good with it."
What's sunset?
Dead Cells. I think I'm like
Dead Cells. Okay.
Yeah, if I don't stop playing that game, I'm never gonna play anything else.
But you've technically finished it though, right?
I got the credits a lot. I got the credits, but there is more to the game than just the credits.
Yeah,
it is not just the credits. But then they announced that they are releasing their final update. Like there is one major update and then they're done. I'm like, okay, well I'm gonna see what's in this final update now, and then I'll be done with it as well. I played a game called Venba. Venba. It's a interactive story narrative game about a Indian family that immigrates to Canada, and it's like a bunch of cooking little mini games, and it kind of tells it tells the struggles of a Indian Canadian family that's struggling with kind of integrating into Canadian culture.
Is it live action?
No.
Okay.
No. It's animated. It's mostly cutscenes with cooking mini games. Because the premise of it is specifically a husband and a wife and their son immigrate to Canada, and I was intrigued because my girlfriend is the exact scenario of that game. Only her, being an only child, her and her parents immigrated to Canada when she was 10 to 12 or something like that. So I actually played with her. She very much enjoyed it. Then I played a really weird game called The Exit 8. The Exit 8?
Oh, Exit, okay.
Exit 8? I guess.
Never heard of it.
It's a weird-ass game where you are on a constant repeating path. It's almost like PT. It can be scary, but it's not supposed to be scary. But it is kind of scary at times.
Like Gone Home.
Yeah, well, Gone Home, though, is they were trying to make it scary, and then they subvert your expectations with it not actually being a very scary game. This game is not technically supposed to be scary, but just the nature of what's happening can be unsettling. You're in a loop of a subway station. You're just trying to get out. And when you walk through, the premise is that when you walk through, it's either going to be completely normal, and then you're supposed to continue on, or if something's off, there's something weird about it. It could be something simple as one of the tiles on the wall is crooked, or one of the light bulbs are maybe a little bit off, or the posters don't make sense. Then you're supposed to turn around and go the other way. And you're supposed to know whether or not to continue forward or go back, but you're supposed to do 8 successful cycles and then you can get out. Then there's there's a new game that came out, a spin-off one called Train 8, it was a continuation, but I played some Star Trek Resurgence, got bored of it, shelved it. I restarted and finished Dredge, which was
okay.
Yeah, which I very much enjoyed. That game was right up my alley. I was so annoyed with the fact that they were not re-releasing or remaking Silent Hill, the first one, that the second was getting all this praise and love, that I went and tried to find my disc copy of Silent Hill to throw on my PS3, and I could not find it. So instead, I did a backdoor way of getting credit on my PSN account, and I went and bought it off the PS3 store, off the PSN store off the PS3, which miraculously worked. And I've been playing through the original Silent Hill, and oh my god, do I love that fucking game so much. I tried starting the Salt and Sanctuary game. Salt and Sanctuary.
That sounds familiar.
It's a 2D Souls-like game. I realized that I need a map when I play a game. If I don't have a map, I can't play a game. So that got shelved. I started Disco Elysium. Yeah, I continued to Spiral the Reignited trilogy. I specifically started the third game on the plane. I was telling Ryan that a glitch happened. I lost my save when I came back down to internet. That was very upsetting. I played a game on mobile. It was actually a text-based RPG called Grim Tides, or was it called? Grim Tides. And it's just a medieval basic RPG text-based thing. It was just something that I played offline while I was on the plane on vacation recently. And then on the plane on my Steam Deck offline, I just had a hankering for some zombie killing, so I played some Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2. And those games still hold up. Those are pretty good games.
Have you played World War Z?
Yes, we played it, Matt. All of us.
Okay, all of us. I couldn't remember who was in the group. Okay.
Yeah. They've actually recently came out with another game/campaign.
Oh, that's good. That's
like
cool.
They've done a major location update.
Because they're also the guys that did Space Marine 2.
Yeah. So that's what I've been playing.
That is quite a bit, actually.
It is quite a bit.
Well, it's from February.
I want to try that Subway game though. That sounds cool as fuck.
Have you actually been recording all your games since February? Like what you've been playing?
Yeah. So what I do though is like when I play a game, like when I play Diablo, I just put a note until the next time I'm on the podcast, and then I don't have to note it again until I'm on the podcast. It just happened to be 7 months. So
Adriano, I remember you telling me that normally when you're on a plane, you don't do anything.
Yeah.
You just sit there. Have you heard what this is now being called?
Raw dogging.
Raw dogging.
Yeah.
And I instantly thought of you when I heard about this.
Yeah. And then people are because I want to do things on planes. And this past plane ride to and from Europe, I was actually able to do something. But in the past, I just couldn't do it. I just kind of zoned out. But then like people were like, "Oh, this guy like raw dogging on a flight," and I'm thinking to myself like, "Bitch, I've been doing that for years. Like I fuck why?" So but then apparently people are now taking it to the extreme. Like there are guys that are just like trying to do it to gloat, and it's like not only do I not do anything, like I don't want to eat anything or go to the bathroom or just like it's like or not even sleep. It's like no, don't like. Do the things that you want to do. If you happen to want to not sit there and just look at a pattern, do it. That's great. But like fucking eat or shit or sleep or do whatever. If I could go to sleep on a plane, I would also do that. Just can't sleep in a vacuum tube for 8 hours. So yeah. I was not impressed when people were like treating it as a trend. I'm like, this is a serious issue, guys. This affects a lot of people.
So you actually see it as a negative that you want to do things, but you can't.
Yeah.
And people are like now enjoying it and treating it as like a meditative state.
Well, it's the things that like I do enjoy it either way because like it is 8 hours to be able to do stuff, but I also do enjoy just sitting there doing nothing because it's one of the few times in which you can just turn off your brain and unwind and not have to think about anything.
I think it's why it's so fascinating to people nowadays. And I imagine this came from the Zoomers, Gen Z, because their entire world is consumption. Mm-hmm. But if you think about planes pre-2000s, like what did you do on a plane? You probably just sat there. Newspaper. You'd grab a magame or a book, and like that's it. You know.
But it was also very social heavy. Like they weren't treating it like you're in a cage. You were getting up and walking around. Like there was full course meals being served. There was like you get up and go to the bar or whatever. So those are good old days. You could smoke on a plane too.
That's a good one to get rid of.
Yeah,
that's a real good one.
Well, it's funny because some planes still have the no smoking. Like they have a constant no smoking thing up there to remind.
Because you know someone's gonna do it. You just
somebody was vaped on my flight back.
I understand. They should know better, yes, but I understand them thinking vaping's okay.
No, but she knew she wasn't supposed to. She was hiding it.
Okay, yeah, then
she legitimately knew. She just legitimately thought that she could get away with it. And at one point, the staff they were doing their drink thing, so they happened to be right here on my left. And this is like hour 5, so I'm already fucking like I'm just looking for anything. And the head sorry, I don't even know what they're officially called. They're not called stewardesses. They're called flight attendants. Thank you. The head flight attendant literally marches up to her subordinate and she goes, "You go back to 41B and you tell her if she vapes one more time, I will have her arrested when we land this plane." And I just like perked up. I'm like, oh, drama. I'm like, I'm looking ahead at 41B, and then like I see her march up, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this. Like I get up the other way, I go out, Like I'm just like casually just like walking around, like trying to get the 411 what's happening. And I saw her. It's like, oh yeah, she looks like a scuzzy Hamilton downtownie who would vape on a plane. So,
all right. Well, thank you.
That's what I've played.
Yeah, that's what you're playing. Yeah.
what a note to end on.
All right, Matt. What are you playing?
Flight Simulator. No. I have been playing. We actually just beat Halo 4 on the stream.
Oh hell yeah!
So that's a check mark in my book because I've never played it before. It is very, sorry to say, it is very 343. The shooting and the whatever and the movement feels more modern, but didn't really vibe with the pacing, the lack or the changes in the music. It just felt very different, and I know they were trying something different, obviously, but it just didn't feel as fun. Didn't feel as Halo-y.
I think they were trying to modernize it. I think they were trying to bring Halo into the 2010s.
Probably trying to fight COD a bit, right? With the movement, especially, it felt very like, hey, we're gonna, we're a competitive multiplayer shooter too, right? Because COD's, top of the world around that time. Mm-hmm. But still pretty good. Beat it, completed that. Other than that, I did a fair bit actually of Arkham City. I'm almost done Arkham City. I've been more or less just kind of beelining, not really rushing, but just sort of just doing the story. Did one set aside things that Marty advised to help me with my mobility, but I'm having fun just doing the main story. I don't need to be running around doing all the side crap. It's just.
Is that the cape flying thing where you can like dive and go up, and was that the thing he had you do?
Yeah, like it's like a better like grappling hook. I forget what the actual gadget's called.
Oh, so yeah. So in the first game, when you grapple, you have to land on the building, and you have to walk, and you have to grapple again. In the second game, I think you can upgrade where you can just grapple. Like you can literally just chain it together. I think.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so it's more of like you shoot way up, you come back down, you shoot way up, you come back down, and it's way faster to kind of like maneuver.
And in Arkham Knight, you can just fucking fly across the city. Like they just make it so easy.
That's actually the game that I'm kind of beelining it towards. Like I like my time with Arkham Asylum. I'm liking my time with Arkham City. I do like Batman, of course, but I'm not like a super mega fan. Know all the enemies and villains and all the rest of it. So I'm just getting my fill of it. Like I'm just kind of popping in whenever I have a few hours. Bang out a mission or two. I'm in the second half of it for sure. I have a mission list open just out of curiosity. I'm not reading the walkthrough or the spoilers or anything, but I think I have like 3 or 4 missions left. I don't know how long those are, of course, because some of them are quite lengthy. But no, it's been fun so far, for sure. The leveling up system feels pretty good. Like it's really simplistic. It's very helpful. Like it's very generous. The first level of each of the armor, there's ballistic, and then there's like combat armor. It's like 25%. Less damage, then 50%, then 75%. It's like, well, okay, Jesus. So that's been nice.
Are you after City? Are you doing which one are you doing?
City.
No, but which one? Are you...
Night. Arkham Knight.
You're not gonna do Origins.
So here's the thing.
Origins
not available on PlayStation. Not available on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5. It is a PS3 game that is locked in terms of that console. It is locked on the PS3.
Just get it on 360 backwards compatible.
I could potentially do that if it's possible, or I did find it on PC as well. But it's a prequel. Because what I actually want to do is I know that like Marty was discussing it, how like the car feels a bit novelty, and it feels like there's a lot of like sort of more forced vehicle section. There's like the car can transform into a tank and stuff, and I feel like I'm going to like that. I feel like I'm going to like just ripping around and stuff like that, because as like a surface level Batman fan, it's just sort of like, that's cool to me. Like I used to play with a Batmobile toy as a kid. So it's like, I'm just like, yeah, I get to drive around a Batmobile kind of thing. So I'm there for the novelty.
They go really heavy with the Batmobile in the third game. It is a lot of driving.
I'm probably going to enjoy it because I also purchased, it was part of the pack, but I purchased all the like skins so I can play as like the original Batman and stuff. Like a skin the car.
So here's the thing though. The skins are functional, not just cosmetic.
Oh.
So there is a tank option in which you need to morph your tank into. So like there's a Batmobile, and then it can morph into a tank.
Right.
There are aspects of that game in which you need to do as a tank. And when you apply the skin in the menu, like for me, I wanted to play with a Tim Burton 89 Batman skin. It says specifically, be like, you can't do the story, like you will be hindered from progressing in the story because you can't transform this into a tank to play the game.
That's weird.
Yes. I don't know why, or I don't know why they just didn't, like, I don't know what the fix would have been, but it'll give you a warning when you try to put it on. But like, my suggestion is you just play with the actual intended tank for the main game, and then when you're doing post game or side stuff, swap it over. Like when you know you're just going to be driving around, swap it, and then you have to swap it back for main missions.
Okay,
because that will actually hinder progress. It's dumb, but yeah.
That's crazy. Like that's because like
it was very disappointing because I bought those skins. I'm like, I'm gonna play Tim Burton Batman, and then it's like, nope, you can't. It's like, oh.
Like even if it wasn't a transformation, but it just sort of like morphed. Yeah. Even if it looked kind of like, you're sort of like, I get it.
Or if it didn't, if it literally just shot as a tank and they didn't even bother to animate it, I'd be like, that's also fine. Like but they're like, no, you can't use it because we can't animate it to morph. It's like, well,
that's weird.
Yeah.
But no, I am looking forward to that for sure. I'm looking forward to like the quality of life stuff. Like you said, you can just fly, having a bit of a bigger world and being able to like move quickly around through it. Obviously, with a car or by flying sounds pretty good to me. But I don't know when I'll get to it. Like I'm not rushing right through the series. I've said it before, I've made that mistake with Red Faction, and I fucking cannot not go back and play Red Faction possibly ever again. Played too many Red Faction games consecutively, so I'm going to take a break from that and go probably play something else, and then I'll be back at some point. But I'm enjoying my time with Arkham City. Also started up the new Fortnite season, level like, I don't know, 20 or 30, something like that. I'm getting all my marble unlocks, getting all my, I'm working toward Dr. Doom. I think it's Dr. Doom, but I'm specifically going toward, what's the alien guy, Ryan? The alien guy with the head, the dome, Jake Gyllenhaal, MCU.
Oh,
Mysterio. I'm working toward getting the Mysterio skin.
He's not an alien.
I just call him an alien guy. Like, as a kid, I thought he was an alien, but...
Because he looks like he has a space helmet on.
Yeah.
You're going to piss off a lot of Marvel people, mate.
Probably. I have not watched the shows either, so I'm going to piss off a lot more people with that potentially as well. But no, I'm looking toward Mysterio because that skin looks awesome. So that's been cool. And I feel like I've been doing something else for sure. A little bit of Apex, of course. 1 or 2 wins. Pretty good. Again this week. Definitely something else. Oh, I mean, Ryan's favorite game. Freaking... I've been on my Steam Deck emulators. I've been playing Pirates: The Legend of Black Cat, which is fucking old, like 2002, very very fucking old. And it's a game that just does not give a fuck about the difficulty, going right up to like 2 billion, and you're still at level 4. And it's like, well, cool. Like it just does not give a crap. So I was like looking through some stuff, and I think I talked about this last week a little bit, where somebody was saying how there's an invincibility cheat. And they ended up having to use that just to like kind of like get through the game enjoyably. So I haven't quite reached that point, but there is a point at which I'm just going to be like, I'm here to see the credits. Like I'm here to like fulfill seeing the credits from like a childhood game. I'm like 70% of the way of just using the invincibility cheat and just like running through like that's fine. So I might do that. Well, I'm not going to rush it. It's just a matter of like, I don't want to sit there and be like, well, I'm dead again. It's like, okay, I'm not here for the challenge. I'm here to like see the story completed. I'm here to say, I was there and I did that. So that's where I'm moving on to. But I have chosen my next emulator game, which is going to be True Crime Streets of New York, because I had the Xbox version as a kid and I loved it, but it crashed like a motherfucker. That thing ran like shit. So I'm going to get that emulated going and try to beat that, because I beat True Crime Streets of LA and True Crime Streets of Hong Kong, or Sleeping Dogs as it's more formally known as. So I want to beat New York as well. And I believe that is it. Oh, bit of Diablo. I completed the season. I completed a season character. I'm level 100.
Oh, playing Diablo.
A little bit, like just one session. Like I'm getting run through it by some experts. So did a little bit of Diablo, and then I tried Star Trekker, and fuck me, can I not fly a ship? I'm very and have always been very flight challenged. I get like I always forget about one of the axes. That's why I like to drive on the ground. And I fucking smash into another trucker in the tutorial, fucking rip part of my roof off, trying to like dock the thing or to drop off my cargo. Then I tried to dock and I was like stuck there. People were honking at me because I was blocking the fucking dock, and I couldn't figure out how to reverse. Then I couldn't figure out how to airlock, and then I smashed my ass into it, and my guy started to pass out because I was running out of oxygen. Big mess. So I played Star Trucker, but I am not a Star Trucker. It's where I'm at.
You'll always be my Star Trucker, man.
Sounds like the credits like rolling up, like they're about to roll up. But other than that, that's it. I may pick up Space Marine 2 this week and jump into that because that game looks fucking awesome, and I might just like rip through that real quick. And that's it. That's been my week.
For me, the big one is obviously Star Wars Outlaws. I'm like 5 hours into it now. That's supposedly a 20 to 30 hour game, maybe 40 hours if you're doing everything, I think. Something like that. I'm
still slow, eh?
I've slowed down as a gamer as I get older. I used to be able to sit down and just play games for like hours and hours, but those days are gone. I don't know. My mind wants to do other things by the time I get through like an hour of gameplay. It's just like I just want to do something else. But I am trying to sit down and play it more, and I like it. As a Star Wars fan, I am enjoying it. I'm having fun. It's a little more stealthy than I would have liked, I think. But I guess that kind of goes with being like a scoundrelly character in the underworld. You know, you got to sneak into different factions, bases, and stuff. There is a cool kind of like loyalty thing where like you could do jobs for certain characters or certain factions. There's 3 criminal gangs, and you can do different jobs, and you'll gain popularity. But you have to kind of. You can't have them all popular at once, I think, right? Because you're going to be screwing over someone. Like in my last job, I had to shoot someone who I was like kind of partnered with, but then I had to kill them, and that obviously lost me favor with them, but then gained favor with the people I was doing the job with. You know, so that's a kind of a fun aspect. And I actually find people are saying this is like a typical game, but I actually find the world more interactive than most open world games. Because you will literally just be walking through a street somewhere, hear someone talk about some hidden treasure behind a waterfall, and then all of a sudden you have a quest now. And it just happens kind of dynamically. It's not really, you know, you don't have to go hit square on it and hear it and stuff. So it feels a little more natural that way. And I've been screwed over already. The guy sold me a VIP pass that wasn't legit. So like there's cool stuff like that makes it feel like you're in a criminal underworld where you got to be kind of street smart, you know. So I've been having fun. I think it's great. I'm sad that it's not doing better because I think a sequel could really polish it up because it is a bit rough around the edges. It feels a little clunky. It doesn't run all that great on my PS5. Like I wish it ran a little smoother because it's a gorgeous game if it was clear, but things seem kind of hazy. But you know, so I really wish it gets a sequel. I don't know if it will or not, but
you know what sucks about that is that. Like I've said this to you guys off air, is like the Avatar game is fucking awesome, and that's made by Massive as well. And it's like, you know,
but you're playing it on PC with a 4080.
That's true. Like even if the performance wasn't, you know, that good, it's like the movement around the trees is really good. The combat feels good. It feels like simplistic but complex enough. I don't know, like it just that whole game feels really good. Mm-hmm. The world looks awesome, and you know, performance notwithstanding, even if we exclude that for a moment, it's like. That game is really, and I don't like fucking Avatar. Like, I could give a shit about the movies. I don't care, like, what happens to the sky people, the blue people, do not care. But, man, like, that Avatar game is awesome. And it's made by Massive, like I said, and that's a new game. Like, that's a new IP, new franchise in terms of video games. And yet, for some reason, or I guess there's another one, but whatever. But like, the point of the matter is it's like, it sucks that the Star Wars one is the one that's a little unpolished. And yet the Avatar one, in my honest opinion, is super fucking polished. I've never had it crash.
I'm guessing the game was close enough to being finished, but they didn't want to delay it into the busy holiday season where we're going to have other games come out, which would have buried it.
Right.
You know, so they probably forced it out now before it had a few extra months of polish. You know, I don't know, but we should probably go before Adriano falls asleep here on.
It looks like he's falling asleep on air here.
Yeah.
I'm still recovering from coming back from Europe. My sleep schedule a little. Yeah.
All right, well, I mean, that's everything I've been playing, really, other than the standard Overwatch and Elder Scrolls Castles, which is coming out in like 7 days or something.
Oh man,
officially. So,
Elder Scrolls Castles.
Mm-hmm. It's like Fallout Shelter. Do you remember that?
Oh game? Yeah.
But for Elder Scrolls. But yeah, so we're streaming more Halo on twitch.tv/DayOnePatchMedia Wednesdays 9 p.m. Eastern. You can catch us there, and thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
I think we're jumping to Infinite, right?
Yeah.
Matt, go finish.
We can't do 5. So
yeah, Matt, go finish Arkham so we can play Suicide Squad.
I mean, I'll still play Suicide Squad. I don't need things to be in order.
That's what I told Adriano.
Yeah, I definitely don't think need things to be in order. That's awesome. Totally fine.
So Ryan and I will wrap up Borderlands, and then we'll jump into Suicide Squad.
I have Suicide Squad installed. My SSD will decay before you guys have completed Borderlands 3.
No, it'll be quick. I promise you. By 2035.
Oh my god.
All right, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Yo, peace.